What if you were to listen to an internationally acclaimed, multi-award-winning illusionist, and he had something far more to say than, "Watch this trick"? Rick Thomas is that performer, ready to go far beyond his magic and far beyond your imagination as he shares secrets regarding our dreams. Dreams that can become reality. The future belongs to those who believe in the strength of their dreams. Dreams pass into the reality of action. From the action stems the dream again. And this interdependence produces the highest form of living. Join Rick and his co-host, award-winning broadcaster Tammy Trujillo, for Nothing Happens Until You Dream. Indulge your mind and take a journey never to be forgotten. A journey connecting all of our dreams as we chase them together.
Rick, most of us know you from Las Vegas or Branson. And something I didn't know before we really started getting going on the book, you have taken this show all over the world, everywhere.
That is indeed correct, and I am absolutely exhausted.
I can only imagine. My gosh. You know, when you travel here in the U.S., if I recall correctly, taking the entire show takes, what was it, 6 semis?
Yeah, well, it takes quite a few.
Okay.
It takes quite a few semis. And as we begin this, I got to tell you something. I laughed the other day. I was watching a documentary on the rock group Kiss.
Oh, yeah.
And Gene Simmons, they were asking him, they said, "Did you know that Kiss has never toured internationally?" And they are asking Gene Simmons, why? Why don't you tour other than the United States? And his words back were, "Why should I?" He says, "Do you know what it takes to move a show across the world, especially their size of show?"
Right.
And he says, "We have so much here in this side of the world, in the United States. We don't need to tour the world." And I'm thinking, what a brilliant man. Because I have toured the world, and just with my show alone, and I give kudos out to everybody who does so. And you want to do that. So many people want to. It's an ego thing. You want to say that you've traveled the world and that there are people out there in the world beyond where you live that thinks that you have, talent to share with the world. But the move is monstrous. The equipment, that's tough enough. But with me, I traveled the world with tigers.
I can't imagine moving a tiger. Just moving cats and dogs from my old house to my new house was an adventure.
First of all, when you move the tigers worldwide, you need what's called a CITES permit. And that is just like a visa, so to speak, that we need when we have our passport. And it's extremely difficult. You need to prove that when you're traveling with these animals that it is educational. That you are not out there performing, so to speak, like a circus, where you're just using these animals in a way where they're just being used as props, so to speak. With my show, we had to implement within the show and after the show enough information about why these animals are endangered and what we're doing to try to protect them and why we present them to the world, and then have questions and answers. And that for that reason, you're given what's called a CITES permit, which also gives you the right to educate the world by utilizing these animals. My biggest problem, of course, is you still have to travel the world with these animals, and doing so, and for all of us that do travel, it is not an easy matter. And when you place these animals in that situation or scenario, they have no choice.
Oh, of course.
We do.
Right.
You get on that airplane in that cramped seat and say, I'm going to deal with it, whatever it may be. But when you're talking about the animals, you place them in a container, put them on a plane, and fly them across the world. Now, I will tell you that when I travel with the animals, they do go first class. They are in a cargo plane. But I usually fly with those animals in the plane. There are no passengers, just a pilot, a co-pilot, and cargo going to that part of the world. And I am there with the tigers the entire time. I can walk back to them. I can talk to them. I can make sure they're okay. So as far as moving them across the world, it's a positive scenario for what we have to do. And there's going to be people on both sides of the fence screaming and yelling, you can, you can't, you should, you shouldn't. But there was a choice in my life where I actually finally removed the tigers from the show and placed them in the reserve keepers of the wild. All this was because of Korea. Now that I've got that out, continue on.
Dear. Okay. I'm scared to continue here, really.
Oh, I'm ready for you today.
Oh, my
Anybody
goodness.
listening today, there's a lot of information I really want to share. There's information here that I'll speak about that literally is not in the book that you just need to know. So let's have at it.
All right. Well, chapter 6, there's one thing before we talk about Korea, though, that I want to get in because this is right at the beginning of chapter 26. And the contracts that performers sign often have things in them that have nothing to do with the performance.
Mm-hmm.
In radio, we call them behavior clauses, and they don't necessarily mean behavior, but they mean things that you can do. And you talk about the one you did in Lake Tahoe, which basically said you can't do a thing outside of the show.
Well, now we bring this up because of the Korean tour, because that contract imploded. I'll share with you what the contract said and what didn't happen with that particular contract. But with Lake Tahoe, for example, people say, Rick, it must be just amazing how you get to work for yourself and be your own boss. And every single contract that I sign and put my name on that dotted line, I now am working for somebody else. I'm not working for myself. I'm working for them, and they tell me what to do. And I'll give you an example. So Lake Tahoe, their contract was, once you sign with us, you cannot engage in any physical activity, including skiing, snowmobiling, ice skating, sledding, snowboarding, whatever it is, you're not doing it. The list went on and on and on. And they basically took away every privilege I have to entertain myself while I was there at the resort by saying that we have you now. You are our responsibility, and we have a show together, and we cannot have you. Now, there are always accidents. Things can occur by, as you know, stepping off a curb.
Thank you for that.
And
You're always going to do this.
Well, I have to, because I am so saddened by your injury, and that it shouldn't have happened.
I'm getting better.
Just stepping off a curb, and
it can happen in a minute. It can happen, simplest thing, but yeah, they're protecting their investment in you is what they're doing.
I mean, Lake Tahoe in the middle of winter, what would you want to do? Ski?
Me? Ice
snowmobile?
Skate. Oh, yeah.
Whatever it may be, you can't do it.
So you basically what?
So basically,
sit in your hotel room, go eat, come back and sit in your hotel room. Wow. And everybody thinks, here's Rick performing in Lake Tahoe, enjoying 2 weeks or what up there. He's probably skiing his brains out and having a great time and doing the show. And he's sitting there watching TV.
Yep. Absolutely. That's the story.
Oh, dear.
So just remember that we all in some way work for somebody else. It's very difficult to have a say in everything for those privileged few. Wonderful. Congratulations for most of us, including myself. Once I signed the contract, my life is in the hands of others.
All right. So Korea, you're packing up the entire show. You're packing up the cats. You're getting the cats' paperwork. There's so much to do before you even embark on the trip.
Months and months and months of work. And the cargo is not a problem. It goes by sea. We put them in containers. 3-4 weeks later, it lands on the other side of the world and goes through customs, and we can get our containers. It's the Tigers. They literally were a world of their own, and getting the permits and showing the governments what we were going to present to the people, the public, what we're going to tell them about these endangered species, what we're doing that's positive about them and positive about why we're bringing the Tigers to Korea.
I'm curious, Rick, what did it cost to get that CITES permit? I'm sure it was expensive.
Actually, that's not. Probably about $200 or $300 for paperwork. But it's the shipping of the Tigers that is on the expensive side. It can be the better part of $10,000 per tiger. Yes. Per tiger. And in Korea, we had 5 tigers.
Oh my goodness. $50,000 in tiger moving.
Just for the tigers. Now and then you add the cargo to it and the dancers and their tickets and housing.
Oh my goodness.
Housing and boarding and all that types of stuff. It's a lot of work and a lot of hope and crossing your fingers that it all works. And in Korea, I'm going to tell you now, and I say Korea because I've performed in China, Japan, all throughout Asia, India, Australia. I love this amazing world of ours. So when I keep saying Korea, this was a 7-month contract. And
Wow.
we loved it. I wouldn't take away the memories and just the absolute joy we had enjoying being there. We love the food, we love the people, and so the entire process around the show was the problem. The challenges we faced with the Tigers was the problem. Those were things that happened that changed my choices in life on working with the Tigers, where they are now, and contracts in general.
Okay, so let's go to the adventure here.
Okay. All right. So indeed, it was a turning point regarding keeping the Tigers in my show.
Mm-hmm.
After my return from Korea, I did remove the Tigers from the show, and I placed them in the reserve Keepers of the Wild. They graciously accept these animals. This is a place where they accept animals that are abused, and I point out this scenario. My animals were never in that scenario.
Right.
Homeless, or in my case, needing a new home.
This place is in Arizona, for people who don't know. It is a fantastic place.
Right next to the Grand Canyon, off Route 66. Couldn't ask for better people or a better place here in the United States to place these tigers. And no, we can't put them back out in the wild.
Right.
But I'm going to also share and remind people that we have a program that the United States created where it is a breeding program with these animals in the wild. There's about 3,000 left. There were hundreds of thousands of tigers years ago, and they're just gone because of the poachers. And if the United States didn't step in and do what they did 50 years ago, they would be an extinct animal. And now there are more tigers in the United States than anywhere else in the world.
They've got to be somewhere, gosh.
So it's got to be somewhere. And in this case, they're in a beautiful reserve, and I'm just glad that they're well taken care of.
I want, though, to talk before we go any further. I want people to understand this was not an easy decision for you. I do remember a phone call, and you told me what you were doing. And I think you'd already placed the tigers. I think you were just placing the birds that you weren't going to have anymore. And Rick, you were crying.
Yeah.
I remember that. I answered the phone, and it was like, it didn't even sound like you. This was not an easy decision. I want people to understand. You just didn't say, oh, I'm tired of these tigers. Not going to do it anymore. I'm going to recreate my show. Let's find a place. Let's get rid of them.
Right.
I want people to understand you thought long and hard. And I think... Personally, I think this tore a bit of your heart out to do this.
I think that for those people who doubt why we have these animals in the show or what their purpose has been in my life, everybody has a different point of view. No two people think alike. No two people see a situation the same way just because of our own upbringing, the things that we were taught when we were younger, how we live our life now. That's why communication it's difficult.
Yeah.
And when I talked to people about the tigers and removing them from my show, it was massive. It was a big deal for me. And I had to think long and hard. I wasn't really too worried about the show itself. The tigers were in the show, but I never tried to make the show about the tigers. They were within the production, but it wasn't a production about tigers. So that one thing was, well, it's not going to damage my show. It's not going to hurt it. And for that reason, that was part of my choice. I appreciate what I had, the opportunity I had to have these animals in my life, but I also appreciated the opportunity to change their lives and give them a little bit more of what they deserve. And that's the freedom that they are enjoying now.
And you can go to the Keeper of the Wild. I mean, people can go there and tour it, and it's an incredible place. So it's a wonderful place to put them. Great choice. All right, so you're in Korea and you're loving it and you're doing the show and...
Let's see. Well, first of all, as we know, transferring the entire show across the world, that's a big deal, and it can be a big challenge. And when I arrived in Korea, I found out, even though we had a contract, once we were there, now, you got to remember, we just talked about how expensive it was to move the show.
Right.
How overwhelming it was to move the show. Months and months of preparation. It just doesn't happen. There's a lot of government. There's a lot of red tape. It's just the cultures and how they handle life is just completely different. And they decided once we got to Korea to change the contract.
Oh.
So a contract was signed and agreed upon.
Oh, my.
And the moment we got there and started rehearsing the show, they asked if we would consider doing 7 days a week for 2 months.
As opposed to?
I think it was 5 days a week. Basically, it's work every day, and they were
Uh-huh.
three, and that's 3 shows a day.
Oh.
So when you add up the shows, you add up getting ready for the show,
Mm-hmm.
doing the shows, presenting the shows, taking care of the tigers after the shows,
Mm-hmm.
all the preparation and the closing down. You're looking at a 15 to 18 hour day
Yikes. And then
every
you
day.
do it the next day, the same thing.
7 days a week. Right. Now, you got to understand culture here. I am performing now currently in the Grand Shanghai Theater in Branson, Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
The owner of the theater, Mr. Tan, is Chinese. He moved to the United States, loves the United States, but they brought their culture with them. All of the entertainers for that show that plays opposite my show, the Chinese Circus, are Chinese. They speak
Mm-hmm.
no English. The communication on stage is quite entertaining,
Oh my.
but they are truly professionals. However, I present 1 show a day
Uh-huh.
right now in Branson. They present 2 shows a day, 7 days a week, no time off,
Wow.
no days off, no vacation. So when you step back and look at the culture
Mm-hmm.
and how they live their life, they know no difference. Even though they're
Mhm.
now in the United States, they are living
Mm-hmm.
as though they are in China, and that is working every single day of their life.
But to
Now,
them, that's normal.
To them, it's normal.
Okay.
So I'll walk on stage and they'll be just literally between shows, just all sprawled out all over the stage, sleeping
I bet.
on these mats between shows, and they're absolutely thoroughly exhausted. But that's what they do. They just live at the theater.
Oh my God.
And also during the holidays coming up, they will do up to 3 shows a day.
Wow.
Again, so here I am in Korea, and instead of us doing 2 shows a day, they're asking us now to do 3 shows a day, and now they're asking us to perform for 7 days a week. I am not saying I couldn't screamed and yelled and kicked and scratched and all that type of thing by saying I'm not going to do it. We said, it's 7 days a week, and it's for only 2 months, and they brought us out here, and it's a beautiful facility. And by the way, the habitat that they created for the tigers,
Mm-hmm.
it was stunning. It was beautiful. They did everything I asked. They really put a lot of money into bringing us over there. I talked to my cast. We sat down and had a big chat session,
Mm-hmm.
and we agreed to give them the 7 days a week for those 2 months. At the end of the 2 months,
thinking of it.
oh yeah, but we kind of paced ourselves.
Yeah.
We would enjoy going out between shows. We would make sure that we spent quality, quiet time between shows, and just found our space as much as we could, and just enjoy being in that part of the world,
Right.
and not making it all about the show. But when we did have free time, find our space. That was a lot of discussion and decisions that we had to do with the cast, but they worked very hard, and it was overwhelming a bit. So
Yes.
at the end of those 2 months, they decided that it was going so well for them that they wanted to continue to 3 show days, 7 days a week for the entire 7 months.
Oh my goodness.
Not for 2 months, 7.
So you're saying for 7 months, not a day off,
Correct.
and 3 shows a day.
Correct. At that point, they threatened us.
Oh my.
Again, the contract was in place. On my part, it was null and void the moment they changed the days.
Correct.
And the moment but they didn't see it that way. They felt that a contract could be free flowing and changed when needed. So they said that basically, if we didn't continue in that fashion, they would stop all payments for the shows we'd already performed.
So you hadn't gotten paid yet?
We were paid kind of monthly.
I see.
So the month before, they're saying, you still want your money. Don't refuse us. Please continue to do this. We need this to cover our bills. We need to do et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they had their side of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
It just made it extremely difficult for us, and something very unexpected for what I thought was going to be an amazing tour, an amazing opportunity. So I remind you again, did I enjoy Korea? Absolutely. We loved it, and we loved the people. And it wasn't the producers, it was the owners of the theater. They are the ones that contracted us. So we had our translators. We had those people who were Korean that understood our side of it. But it was a rough deal. And by the time we ended the contract, now I don't mind continuing the saga. Unfortunately, I somehow got strong-armed into shipping my equipment back on my own, including the tigers, and paying for everything.
Oh my gosh.
And they started having financial problems. I don't know why. Our show was doing fine, but we know that in corporations, monies go out in different ways.
Yes.
And
Yes.
our show was being affected. And by the time we finished, I was starting to see the writing on the wall and began saving my income, knowing the people that I was working with and the deals that they were attempting to make, that we're going to be stuck in Korea and have no way home.
Oh my
So I
goodness.
just started banking everything that I was making. And I literally found out at the end, we had to pay for all the Tigers, all the cargo, and everything to get back to the United States. We were stuck in Korea. And I literally, without taking every bit of money that I actually made that entire 7 months and putting it back into getting the show back to the United States, we would have never gotten home.
Now, I know a question people are going to ask me, so I'm going to ask you before they ask me. When they bumped up the number of shows per day, changing the contract, did the contract price change?
No, it didn't.
Oh.
Again, it was a really bad scenario. It was,
dear.
in fact, we began sending dancers home early. Are people listening here? Because I couldn't afford to keep the entire cast going at the facility. I could see the writing on the wall.
Wow.
It began to crumble. They needed to deal with their losses, and in the process, they were leaving me to hang out and dry. I saw the scenario. I realized I was on the other side of the world, and I'm not saying this as far as Korea in general. I've done other tours there. It was just the last tour we did was a bit of a fiasco. So
wow.
The producers were supposed to return the entire shipment, both Tigers and the Illusions, back to the United States. They didn't. I protected myself. I could see what I needed to do, prepared for the disaster. And Tara was out there with me, my wife, Tara. And at that time, we were living off her paycheck while I set aside all of my personal profits. And it literally took everything to get my show back to the United States. So when I watched this documentary about Gene Simmons and Kiss and saying, why would I want to travel the world? I said to myself, exactly. Where were you when I made this first decision? So there's wisdom in also understanding and traveling the world, which I have done. I will tell you now that I'm excited. We are traveling the world again. We're doing shows this December in Australia.
Oh, wow.
I was going on a family vacation, and that vacation turned into a work vacation. Tara's not real thrilled, but there were some producers out in Australia who asked, well, Rick Thomas is coming to Australia. He has to do something.
Wait, how did they find out that Rick Thomas was going to Australia?
Well, I kind of let everybody know that we were going to Australia. Yeah.
I knew that.
I have family in Australia. Tara, of course, her family is in Australia. And I just kind of let some people out there know, hey, we're coming out to Australia. And I might have pushed
little fishing there, little carrot dangles.
But we still needed to make it a family outing. And we're actually flying the Illusions across the world. We're not putting them on the ocean. It takes over a month to do so. And we can get them across to Australia in a few days when we fly them over. And I announced it to my cast just a few days ago, and they're thrilled. They're happy. And I can guarantee you this, the contracts in Australia will not be like they were in Korea. And
let's hope not.
everything is in place, and it's all good to go.
Dogs are going or not?
No
dogs.
No, I made the decision to never travel with the animals again. And that was the decision with Korea. And I'll tell you why in just a moment. But in fact, even in Australia, we are performing and presenting birds in the show. I still open the show with my beautiful bird routine.
Oh, you love.
But they have magicians over there in Australia, and there happens to be one who has some birds, and I will borrow them for my presentation. And I will not travel with the animals. I cannot put them through it. I knew that when I got back from Korea, that is one of the decisions why I put them in Keepers of the Wild. Now, go ahead and ask me that question and more. Rick, why was that your decision? And anything else you want to ask before I share with you that side of the story?
Well, I want to know why that was your decision. And how were those tigers when you got them home?
The habitat in Korea was awesome.
Right.
My habitat in Las Vegas, awesome. The travels, they were still the best way you could travel with them, but just the traveling itself and seeing the wear and tear on
Mm-hmm.
how I had to deal with the animals and it being so far across the world, I could never do it again. So this was my choice. I knew that when I brought the tigers to Korea, when I first got there, that first part of the experience was, I'm not going to do this again. And I thought to myself, because they had such a beautiful habitat in Korea, and I also went to their zoo.
Mm-hmm.
They had a stunning zoo. I mean, as beautiful as you can imagine. And I went to the Korean government and asked if there was a consideration that after our presentation that we offer the tigers to
Oh,
be on display in Korea. Now,
huh.
this was the kicker. This is where the government steps in. And this is why I just wanted to have nothing to do with it again. I was over with it. I was done with it, very upset. So I get a hold of the United States government
Mm-hmm.
and they said, and it's a CITES permit, which means you're allowed to travel the world with these animals.
Right.
However, you must travel with them and they must return to the United States. So when I asked that the tigers be left in Korea,
Mm-hmm.
they said, no, the tigers must be returned on your CITES permit to the United States.
Huh.
Now, I said, okay, so that's not legal. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so what is legal? What would I need to do to leave these tigers in Korea?
Mm-hmm.
And then our illustrious US government said, you need to fly home with the tigers to the United States. And once you land in the United States with the tigers, you can turn around and send the tigers back to
Oh,
Korea
good Lord.
on a different piece of paperwork, which will allow you to donate the tigers to Korea. And I said, I
That's
can't
crazy.
do that I can't do that while I'm here. I can't fill out that's paperwork here. No.
Dear.
You must bring those animals back to the United States, fill out the proper paperwork, and then send them back to Korea. I said,
Bureaucracy.
are you stupid? Are you sorry? I mean, how idiotic.
That makes no sense.
So dumb. I
Oh
couldn't
my
even.
God.
They're the same tigers. They
Right.
had the same permits. They had
Right.
the same health certificates. Everybody who knew anything about them knew exactly. So you want me to spend $50,000 to bring my tigers home,
Mhm.
turn around and spend $50,000 to send them back to Korea
Mhm.
when they're sitting here ready to be accepted by the Korean government?
Not to
And
mention
that's
the
what
stress.
you want me to do?
The stress
Oh,
on those animals, not to
and it-
mention.
And that point was my decision to never do this again to the animals.
Oh my
The animals
God.
didn't know what was going on,
No,
but
of
I
course
did.
not.
And I was sick of it. Now, in my book,
Oh,
I don't write this part of the story.
right.
I
It's not
say,
there.
I brought them home and I'm so excited to bring them. So I kind of, okay, I wouldn't say lied, but I didn't give you the whole story.
You just omitted
brought-
part.
I
You
brought
omitted.
them home. I decided to put them in the Keepers of the Wild because
Mhm.
once they got back to the United States, I could go to Keepers of the Wild and say, can I donate these tigers to you? Will you take care of them? And they said, yes. And I go,
Mhm.
here you go. We sign over a little bit of paperwork and it's
Mhm.
theirs. So I brought the tigers all the way back from Korea to the United States unnecessarily. Because I can tell you now, Keepers of the Wild is beautiful. But in Korea, what they had done, they spent a massive amount of money to take care of these animals. They did have respect for them.
Mhm.
They were taking care of them. And I thought it was really the best thing for them to not have to put them through traveling back to the
Yeah,
United
right.
States.
Right.
And I thought, I won't have to worry about it anymore. That's my decision. I cannot go through this anymore. And the US government said, no, you must bring them back here first. But once you do, you have every right and privilege to send them back to Korea. I go, I give up.
Thank
I give
you.
up on-
Goodbye.
Yep.
Yeah, there are so many things like that in life, Rick, where you just go, that makes no sense. If a logical person sat down and thought about that, they could realize that in 2 seconds. So why are we doing it that way? So frustrating.
I share this story about Korea because I know also how hard life is for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Life is difficult. We all have our challenges and our problems. And I commend everybody for just being human and getting through this whole thing we call life.
Yeah.
In my situation, I chose to do this. I chose to go to Korea. Once we got there and the contracts kind of changed on us, that I did not choose. I did the very best I could at just applying our common sense and our ability to just get through it and to stay strong. If there's a cliche, you say bite the bullet.
Yeah.
Whatever
right.
it may be, you just You just realize that you're in a scenario or a situation that you've got to plow through and get home. And in the process, when I had the U.S. government throw back at me, oh, no, no, no. Now, honestly, I was also trying to save myself
Well,
$50,000
yeah, of course. That's
in
part of it.
shipping the Tigers back to the United States. I had lost everything by doing the contract.
Yeah.
There were no
Yeah.
profits from the show for 7 months. Yeah, we enjoyed Korea. We were fed and we were housed, but I didn't go home with anything.
Mm-hmm.
And you may want to think that that's, I wasn't thinking of the Tigers, but I was. I was thinking, I don't want to put them through the shipping anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The Tigers are going to live in a stunning residency, but it didn't matter. I had the U.S. government throw in my face ridiculous laws also that I had to deal with, and it just doesn't matter. When you try to do what you think is best for everyone and everything and every animal, you've got people out there that don't let you do it. And the government was willing to put these animals through this for me to do something simple, and that was just allow the animals to stay where they were at.
Well, unfortunately, too often animals aren't considered in decisions.
Yeah.
They're considered as things as opposed to beings with feelings, emotions, needs. They don't have rights. They get shoveled around as they get shoveled around, and a lot of government rules are indicative of that. A lot of laws are indicative of that, and if you love animals, it makes you want to scream.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you were doing a lot of screaming.
I was actually doing a lot of screaming.
Yeah.
And so you understand with this podcast today, it is that we all have to deal with a whole bunch of what in our lives to get through it. And I'm sharing it with you. There is no woe is me. There is no, I feel sorry for Rick Thomas. That is not my choice. That is not my case. That's not what I want. I just want to let you know that when you think that Rick Thomas works for himself and everything is right and everything is dandy, it's not. Now, once I got back home from Korea, the entire process, it continued. I was actually out in Asia performing there in preparation for reopening my show in Las Vegas at a new hotel and a new casino in a new theater. And while we were waiting for that to all be built, I went on tour. That's what I did. And the tour was, it went in the record books with a lot of challenges. And I get back home in Las Vegas and realize that the theater, the casino and resort that was supposed to be built was never completed.
What?
I was left without a show in Las Vegas after planning on returning with a new production.
I didn't know about this. This is brand new information to me. What happened to the hotel? Did it just sit there half done?
No, in 2008, 2009, and 2010, when this all happened, we had an economic crash in the United States. And the banks for that particular casino stopped supporting the building of the casino. I think about $500 million was spent on the beginning of the process, and that has now been sold off to another group. Actually, intriguing enough, Chinese group, Genting, who then built a hotel casino in Vegas, which is now open, and they're running that hotel and theater and everything that goes with it. And Rick Thomas, when that happened, kind of curled up in a ball and for a few months didn't know what I was doing.
I don't blame you. You've got all these beautiful plans and you kind of got it all laid out, and
that's right.
Then it just crumbles.
But the moment that I lost the theater in Vegas, I had about 6 months of self-reflection, wondering what I was going to do next. It takes anywhere from a year to 2 years to obtain a theater. Contracts are very far out. Entertainment, they plan extensively. It just doesn't happen. Hey, next week, Rick Thomas, come and perform at our theater.
No.
It doesn't work.
No.
So I realized at that point that maybe I had to go another route. And my two brothers, Ross and Rhett Thomas, they had their own show in Branson, Missouri for 5 years. I think it was at least 5 years. And they were out there performing daily with numerous superstars, one of which was the Osmond family. My brothers would open for them in their showroom. And they said, hey, Rick, you really should try and check this out and consider bringing your show out to Branson. And unfortunately, for most of my life, I was too busy with the bright lights of Las Vegas. I was busy with my life and trying to become the superstar that I wanted to be. And my entire world at that time, other than my world tours, revolved around being in Las Vegas.
Yeah, that had been kind of the thing since you were a kid.
Yeah.
That was
So
the
honestly,
pinnacle.
I never planned on being in Branson. I never planned on attempting going there, taking my family there, and especially not performing. Now, I'm going to tell you this. This, I have to say this. It's in the book, but I say it again. We have regrets in our life. We all
Mm-hmm.
do. And one of my regrets to this day is that I had two brothers who are extremely talented. They
Yes.
sing and
Mm-hmm.
they're comedians on stage. They have a wonderful performance. I never once flew out to Branson to see my brothers perform. I never saw my brothers perform
I
live.
understand that. You want to, but it just doesn't fit.
It was my
Yeah.
fault.
Oh, I know.
I made horrible choices.
I've made those
And
same ones, Rick, and I could kick myself sometimes about it. Yeah.
one brother, after their stay in Branson, moved to Indiana. The other brother now in Utah, and their lives went on. They still perform sporadically with each other,
Mm-hmm.
but they moved on, and I never ever got to see what I should have was my two brothers perform a live show. And I personally missed one of the greatest opportunities of my
Mm-hmm.
life, and I sadly regret it.
I
So
get that.
when Rick made it all about Rick Thomas and all about Las Vegas, oh, why should I come out to Branson? I just have no time, right? I'm in Vegas, right? And I think that when I came back from Korea and I
Mm-hmm.
lost that show and the theater I thought I was going to perform in, and I sat pondering life, and I realized it's still difficult, but it's not all about Rick Thomas. I think you can't wait for anything in life. I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
wait for something else to occur or happen.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I was literally asked. Andy Williams passed on and
Mm-hmm.
left the Andy Williams Moon River Theater to Jimmy Osmond.
Oh, wow.
And Jimmy Osmond came to me through my brothers,
Mm-hmm.
Rhett and Ross, and said, Rick, why don't you consider bringing your show out to Branson?
Wow.
And I think part of it was because I had the privilege of performing in Andy Williams Theater.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the honor was massive. And even to this day, how lucky I have been to stand on the stage that Andy Williams created.
No kidding.
It is part of my life and my history that I am grateful for. And now, 10 years later, I am still in Branson. This 2,000 seat theater that I was offered to perform in, it won the 1992 Conservation Award for Developed Land Use from the state of Missouri, and the only theater ever to be featured in the Architectural Digest. It
Wow.
is beautiful, beautiful theater. And I went out there and have had 10 wonderful years. So
Mm-hmm.
I am grateful. I've been asked to go back to Las Vegas. We've had those discussions to do so. And I have found that no matter where you are, there you are.
Yes.
You are in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
and you should be enjoying what you have,
Mm-hmm.
enjoying what is already there in front of you, and not always wish for something else, thinking that what you have isn't good enough. And I want as humans to pursue more. I want as you to pursue your dreams and follow your wishes, your wants, and your desires. But sometimes the grass isn't always greener. And sometimes what you have in front of you can be one of the greatest, wonderful things of your life. And right now, currently for me, I do present the show as, of course, I'm going to Australia in December. I'll be performing in Las Vegas next February. And I'm out there for a bit, and I reopen the show here in Branson next March. But I still have a full life, and I enjoy wherever I am the opportunity to perform, even if it's Korea.
As long as you can get home.
Yeah. And I think I also learned that also when I realized that Andy Williams, who
Mm-hmm.
was a world traveler and world renowned successful musical star, he also moved his entire family to Branson, and he chose to live there.
Mm-hmm.
He passed away on September 25th in 2012.
Wow.
And when Jimmy was offered the theater and he asked me to come out to Branson, and I teased that I never planned on being there, he said, Rick, and he comes from a family that has seen this world 10 times over.
Mm-hmm.
They were the most massive superstars when they had their hits in the 70s and the 80s, and
Oh,
the
yeah.
Osmonds were a big deal.
Yep.
And Jimmy says, why don't you just come out here and perform? And
Mm-hmm.
so I did. I walked out on the first thing I did is I walked out on that stage, and I stood where Andy stood. I took a deep breath, and I looked out over the empty seats in the audience and in a quiet theater and said to myself, I may have found my home.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be a home away from home. It's not that I don't enjoy and love performing in Vegas as well.
Mhm.
But again, I am just thrilled that I'm still able to do what I love, no matter where may be,
Mhm.
and that my life is full. I don't stop dreaming. I do not stop trying to do more. I do not stop trying to perform and present, even back in Vegas and other places. But I don't regret my choices. I don't mind being here. And when you decide to make those choices, even when we were in Korea and we had all
Mhm.
those challenges, and I came back with no money over that 7-month period,
Yikes.
and troubles with the show, troubles with the
Mhm.
cast, troubles with the Tigers, US government, Korean government, the contracts that just fell through. I realized that we were there
Yep.
and that no matter how hard you want to stomp your feet and scream to the world around you, that you need to figure out your problem. And we did. And we had a
Mhm.
lot of discussions on what's best. One was, let's try to leave the Tigers here. That did. One
Mhm.
was, okay, we've got to do all these shows, because I realize that though they're paying me a very little money, if I don't do this, I'm not going to have enough to get this show back to where I want to be, and that's the United States. So you make those decisions, you do the very best you can, and you move forward and enjoy the ride.
Yep. That's all
Enjoy
you
the
can
ride.
do. The opposite doesn't get you anywhere. Yelling and screaming and fussing and fighting, you're still going to be in the same place when you're done. So figure it out.
Yeah.
Make the best of it. That's what you have to do.
The chapters in the book are the chapters of my life. When I was younger, I still felt that I'd have a couple chapters in my life, and this book has quite a few, and it represents the chapters of our life. We never know what path our life is going to take.
No.
New chapters are written every day, as you know.
Mhm.
Changes are made. And I'll also tell you now, change is frightening.
Oh, it
Change,
is.
and I agree,
Sure.
it is frightening. I was driving with Tara.
Mhm.
Of course, Tara's mother is now back in Australia with her other sisters and their families. And we were taking her to the airport.
Mhm.
And we were just talking about shows and life and what we do to better ourselves. And I said to Tara, I said, I don't want you to ever think that I absolutely have it all together and I have no fear. Because she says, you just, they want you to perform in an arena, you go to the arena. They want you to perform in China, you go to China. You figure out a way to
Mhm.
do it, to get there and pull it off. And I said, and Tara, every step of the way, I'm absolutely frightened
Mhm.
because I doubt myself.
Oh
I wonder if
gosh,
I can pull it
yes.
off.
Yes.
But I also have personal little voice inside of me that tells me, you shall never quit.
Mhm.
You will do this.
Mhm.
You can do this. And then I look at all the people of the world and the things that they have done and the amazing things that have been accomplished and go, in my life, there are things that I can do. Am I frightened to do it? Absolutely.
I
But
know.
that is the joy of being human, being willing to go out there and put one foot in front of the other and try and attempt to follow your dreams and make this world a better place and give back to it what it's given to you.
Well, Rick, you said it a little while ago when you talked about not going out and seeing your brothers in Branson.
Yep.
You didn't do it. You regret it. You can't change it.
No.
And this is something I need to teach myself, because work always gets in the way of things. And there are things that I have not gone to because of work that will never happen again. And I didn't get to experience them. And I am working very hard to change that.
Good.
But it's
Well,
hard. It's very hard because you and I work.
yes.
That's
I know.
what we do. But
As I did in Las Vegas as
Yeah.
well.
Oh, yeah.
Not that I'm not working hard out here,
Mhm.
but I was doing 2 shows a night, 6 nights a week in Las Vegas.
God, that's rough.
Korea, I was doing 3 shows a day, 7 days a week. That
Mhm.
was pushing it. And Branson, now currently I'm doing 1 show a night. I have a life beyond the show. I have the opportunity to work and enjoy life. I don't fight for the dollars on the table as I did in Las Vegas.
Mhm.
And I think that that's probably why I found my peace and my happiness. And
Yeah.
I get to now choose where I want to go. I make really, it takes a long time to make those choices now because
I get
sometimes
that.
even the choices I think that are right turn out to be wrong. Do know that as I share this with you, that I have a massive respect for all different people and all different cultures. I love traveling this world because of the amazing many things that I can experience. But people are people. And when I went to the other side of the world and have to deal with a contract that in their eyes was normal, in their
Yeah.
eyes, they do that. They change contracts. Their work ethic is bonkers.
Yes, it is.
To
Oh my
me,
gosh. It's
to
crazy.
me.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating to be here in the United States working opposite the Shanghai acrobats
Mm,
and watching them still live their lives the same way as though
right.
they are in Asia, in
And they're
China.
fine with it.
And well, it also allows me to accept that that is their choice.
Yes.
That is the way they live their lives. I commend them. I wish they had a little more time off. That's their choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's their comfort zone.
Yeah.
That is what they do.
Crazy.
So I appreciate it. It shows to me that, yes, it wasn't something in Korea that was just asked of me
Mhm.
and they thought to be using me.
Right.
They didn't think that at all. That
No.
was, and again, every person has a different way of looking at things. And I had to step back and realize that I am in a different country with different obligations and expectations. And so make your choices wisely
As best you can with the information you have.
and prepare for change.
Yeah. What is it? Expect the worst and hope for the best.
Yeah.
Maybe that makes
absolutely.
some sense. Maybe that does.
Oh, it does.
It
It
does.
really does. And I do hope that the podcast today shined a little bit more light on, some people, like I said, they just totally not into me ever working with the Tigers. But
Yeah.
maybe you kind of realize that
Mhm.
I had a good heart and efforts in my life to do the best I could for not only my human cast and crew, but my animals as well. I think the choices that have been made in my life currently, it's wonderful. I get the opportunity to share with people where these animals are, that they
Mhm.
can go enjoy them as well,
Yes.
that they
yeah.
are in a good place.
Mhm.
And my heart has turned more towards conservation. I found a little bit of happiness where I'm performing. I still tour the world. And anybody, if you'd like, always go to rickthomas.com and check out where we're going next, because I still love to travel the world. It makes me feel alive. But most of the time, you'll find me right here in Branson.
Sounds good. And I am going to come to Vegas next time you're there.
Oh,
I'm not going to miss it.
that's right. You're not going to miss this one because Rick Thomas is not going to fail you this time. And it's like, Rick, you were in Vegas and you didn't tell me.
Ah,
Well, it was just for such a short period of time.
yeah,
blah, blah,
yeah,
blah,
yeah,
blah,
yeah,
blah. And
yeah.
once
Okay.
again, Rick Thomas thinking of only himself.
Well,
So
again,
apologies.
in your defense, you do get crazy busy. And sometimes when we're crazy busy, we forget things that are very, very important to us. And then you sit down and you go, oh my God, I did that. Gee. So it's, I think we all have an overload, and you operate at overload. I operate at overload. And I think we're both learning as we've gotten a little bit older to ramp it back just a little bit. And I'm doing my very best at that. One thing we want to talk about before we end, we're talking about the world being crazy and complicated. And it seems like every day it gets a little more crazy and complicated. And financially, boy, is that the case now or what? Every single day. Every single day. It gets tricky. I recently thought about refinancing my house. And with today's rates, I bought it 4 years ago. With today's rates to refi, my house payment would double.
You can't do that.
No, of
Not
course
right now.
not. Who's refining? No way. But that's where we are right now versus just 4 years ago. So thinking about your finances and thinking about protecting your finances, Rick, you've got some really important info and you're so willing to share it.
Thank you. Well, first of all, don't go to Korea. No,
Right. Okay. Off the table.
Don't take your show to Korea.
Right. Okay. There's our first tip.
Okay. First tip. But I'd go back in a heartbeat, though. I just have to ask for something up front.
Or just go as a tourist. There you go.
I was so honored to have a few gentlemen watch my show one night and tell me after the show or ask me what I knew about precious metals, gold and silver, and what I'm doing to protect my family.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, Rick Thomas, who thought he knows it all, said, well, I know about gold. I know I probably should have some, but I don't know why. So they shared with me what to buy, how to buy, where to buy, where to store it, and how to sell it, and protect my family. It is an insurance policy on a currency that we call a fiat currency that we're living with right now. And with the trillions of dollars being printed, our money is becoming truly worthless, and we have to really watch out. And what's nice is I personally was told this. Literally, they took my hands and guided me in the right direction. And there are television commercials out there now saying, buy gold, buy silver.
Yeah, right.
You should listen to those commercials. They really are on the mark. And what I now enjoy is personally telling people, myself, my story, what I know about gold and silver, what it's done for my family, and how you can protect your family as well. And it's a privilege, it's an honor, and it's something I do on the side to just keep myself entertained. And I would love to share the reason why. I had a gentleman come up to me, I did a show last night, and he came up after the show and he heard about my love for precious metals and having something that's tangible. And if you don't hold it, you don't own it, that kind of thing. Right. He goes, Rick, is it really that big a deal? And I said, it's that big a deal. He said, can you tell me about it? And I said, absolutely. And I pulled out my phone and I said, give me your phone number. And I took his phone number down. I'm going to be phoning him today and just chat with him about what he needs to do to plan for the challenges we face in the world around us. And that's all I'm trying to do, is agree with so many professionals out there that you've got to diversify. You've got to prepare and have your life in a few places, not put it in one place, and protect yourself and get prepared for this crazy world that we continue to watch transpire around us.
As best you can. It's not hard to do this. It's not that costly either. And you can get Rick to give you a call. He's happy to call you too. All you've got to do, you go to mansionofdreams.net/wealth. mansionofdreams.net/wealth. Little form there, take you 2 seconds, and Rick will call you up and tell you all about it. And
wow, you're getting good at this.
That was my memory even. But, you'll have a chance to talk to Rick and get the details and then make some informed decisions.
I appreciate it. Yep. I thank you.
Yep.
And everybody out there, once again, enjoy the ride, enjoy life, and just know that we're all in this together. And that my suggestion is follow your dreams, but hold hands with as many people as possible and dream together.
Perfect.
Thanks for joining us this week on Nothing Happens Until You Dream, starring Rick Thomas and featuring Tammy Trujillo, and is based on Rick Thomas's best-selling book, The Tiger Whisker, available on rickthomas.com. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We'd love for you to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. And check us out on Patreon for exclusive members-only content. Stay up to date with Rick and Tammy at nothinghappensUntilYouDream.com. Remember, you must follow your dreams, not only for yourself, but for the rest of our future. We'll see you on the next episode.